Today, I want to give you 5 tips to help you instantly improve your Russian skills. Let's get started. The first thing that I want you to do is learn specific set phrases to help you buy time whenever you're in a Russian conversation. You might think, well, what does it mean? But let me give you a simple example because you already do this in English. Because imagine someone asks you a question, would you be able to live in New York? You would say, well, that's a great question. Let me think. Yes, I would be able to live in New York. Your real answer was, yes, I would be able to live in New York. But before that, you said, that's a great question. Let me think. Yes, I would be able to live in New York. So you added like a lot of unnecessary in terms of like real straight communication, but still they add some extra thing to it where it buys you time to think about what exactly you want to say. And you can do the same thing in Russian. And if someone asks you, могли бы вы жить в Москве? Could you live in Moscow? You could say, это хороший вопрос. Дай мне подумать. Я думаю, что да, я мог бы жить в Москве. You say the same thing like, that's a great question. Let me think about it. I think that. And there's so many things you can do this. Like you can also add like, for example, in sentences, например. Those are little things you can add to your conversations that show that you are keeping the conversation. Because the alternative would be to if someone asks like, would you be able to live in New York? You just have like a pause. You just stand there, wait for 10 seconds before you thought of what you want to say, and then give the answer. It's much better to fill this up with phrases that are kind of like standard, you can say for everything, and then give the answer, because it keeps the conversation much more flowing. All right, so the second thing that I want you to do is to use cognates to prime your subconscious to better understand which words are the same in English as in Russian. Because there are lots of words that are the same in English and Russian, or just differ a little bit. For example, the word for effect, like it's effect in English, it's effect in Russian. Or other words that are more or less similar, like brother in English is brat in Russian, and there are lots more of those. If you haven't yet downloaded my list of currently 750 Russian English cognates, you can do so in a link in the description below. The third thing that I want you to do is to learn a couple of substitute words. And with substitute words, I'm going to give you 3 examples now of a verb, a noun, and an adjective that you can use in those cases. Okay, first let's talk about the verb. Imagine your internet is broken and you want to fix it. You want to say, интернет не работает, нам надо починить интернет. That would be the way to say, internet's not working, we need to fix the internet. But maybe you don't know the word for fix, починить. In that case, what you could just say is, интернет не работает, нам надо делать интернет. So it's like to do internet, because the context will make it clear that you mean like we need to fix the internet. Another example how you can use that I remember said once with делать is, for example, I wanted to say, I want to cut my hair. Я хочу стричь волосы. But I didn't know the word for стричь, to cut. So I just said, я хочу делать волосы короче. I want to make hair shorter. And that's the same thing. You can do this, like deal is such a nice substitute verb. Now about an adjective that you can use for this. You might already be doing this, but if you know for example, a friend of you shows you his new car and you want to say, that's an amazing, cool car. That's a cool car. We don't know the word for cool, крутая машина. You can just say, хорошая машина or очень хорошая машина. Like every time you want to say something positive, there might be like a little bit more specific adjective in English, or there might be one in Russian. But if you just say хорошая, people understand that, oh yeah, you think positive of this thing. So just use хорошая all the time. Sure, spend time learning more adjectives because that's important, but at the same time, you can use хороший for everything and people understand what you mean. And the third thing that you can do, this is like a noun. If, for example, use the word штука like often. Штука means like a thing or a piece. So, for example, someone is showing you his new vacuum cleaner. So you can say, you might want to say, that is a useful vacuum cleaner. Полезный пылесос. but you don't want to work for пылесос because it's quite specific. So you can just say instead, полезная штука. It's a useful thing. And that will also make it easy. You can just штука about everything. Now you might think about these substitute verbs like, I want to be more specific in my speech, but native Russian speakers also often substitute this. And you also do this in English. Like you say, oh, that's a nice thing instead of being super specific. So it's completely fine to do this. The fourth thing that I want you to do is pay attention to, you can skip some of the pronouns in Russian because in English, we cannot do this because it's I say, you say, we say, they say, don't say that. But in English, it's я говорю, ты говоришь, вы говорите, мы говорим, они говорят, не говорите это. So it means that just if I say говорю, it already implies I am speaking, I am saying. So you can just leave the я out there. This is something that you kind of need to work on your Russian intuition for this, but often you can just leave it out if it's already clear. Like if I say говорю по-русски, it's obvious that I'm speaking Russian. You can, and yeah, one good way to understand kind of like when is nice to say я говорю or when it's nice to say просто just говорю is to watch a lot of Russian series to make sure that you hear correctly spoken Russian so that you better understand when native speakers say something, and it will help you subconsciously also emulate their speech and when to say the pronouns, when not to say the pronouns. All right, so the fifth thing that I want you to do is whenever you are reading something in Russian, try to make sure you are reading it with Russian stress marks. The reason why you want to do this is because not saying the stresses correctly is an instant giveaway that you are not a native speaker, and often your accent might be good, you might be saying the right words, but if you say the wrong stresses, it will still give away that you're not a native speaker. This is not a bad thing, but if you can fix this, then it will just make your speech sound much better, more eloquent, and much nicer to listen to. Now, so how do you do this? For example, if you got the choice between, like you're looking for a couple of Russian books with some short stories, try to find the one that has the stress marks added to it, because whenever you're reading something, you're like reading it and then you instantly understand, oh, this is the way it should be pronounced instead of kind of needing to guess it because the stresses are so random. Another thing that works is if you are checking something online, then there are some browser extensions that then automatically add the stress marks to whatever you're reading online. And this is great if you are, trying to read some news in Russian or some online stories or just anything like movie descriptions. If you're looking for a movie, just make sure this browser extension is then on so that you can learn the correct pronunciation of the stresses right away. All right, that was it. I hope you enjoyed the video. So yeah, if you haven't yet downloaded the list of cognates, do so in the link in the description below. Спасибо вам огромное за просмотр и желаю вам удачи с изучением русского языка.